Dear students, yesterday we were talking about water. You know that very well that water that has no impurity at all is known as a pure water. Pure water is very important constituent of food. Every cell in our body also contains 90% of water. You should be remembering that. Necessary to maintain the fluidity of the blood, water is essential for digestion, for excretion, for maintaining the body temperature. So, water is really very useful. Water is even useful for washing, for clothing, right? You should also not forget that 78% of the earth is composed of water, right? Now, dear students, let's see about the importance of water. Almost 71% of the earth is covered with water in the form of oceans, in the form of rivers, in the form of lakes. But very less amount of water is potable. Very less amount of the water is a fresh water. That's why we say that there is scarcity of water. Rest of the water is either impure or it is a sea water, that is a saline water. यू शुड रिमेंबर दैट और सेलाइन वाटर पोर्टेबल नहीं होता हम उसको सीधा पी नहीं सकते हैं वॉट वी कैन ड्रिंक इज ओनली द फ्रेश वाटर राइट सो डियर स्टूडेंट्स we got to know about the impurities then. So, water has some impurities present in them, which are either insoluble impurities, which can be seen through our naked eyes, soluble impurities, which can be only seen with the help of a microscope, and either there are some microbes. So, we are going to talk about these three types of the impurities present in the water, and we will even see which methods we will follow to forego these impurities, to clean the water from these impurities. Now, dear students, let's talk about the impurities. The substances that pollute the water are called water impurities. सारी substances जिसके कारण से हमारा water pollute होता है उनको हम लोग water impurities बोलते हैं. Water is being polluted by throwing the waste into the rivers, oil, leakage by the water transports, water coming from the drains from our houses. So बच्चे ये सारा water धीरे धीरे जाकर mix up हो जाता है into the rivers, which further go and meet the seas and the oceans. जिसके कारण से there is the polluted water in front of us. So dear students, let's see how can we remove the insoluble impurities from the water. Insoluble impurities means those impurities that can be seen with our naked eyes. Like it can be some sand, it can be some gravel, it can be some stones, some leaves. So, dear students, there are three ways with the help of which we can remove the impurities. The first is known as what? It is known as sedimentation. What do you call it? Sedimentation. Second is known as decantation. And the third is known as filtration. So, we have the three processes which we can use to overcome or remove the insoluble impurities from water. What are they? Sedimentation. Then they are particularly the sedimentation. Then from the sedimentation we have decantation, and finally we have the filtration. So we are going to discuss these in detail now. Now dear students, let's take some steps to remove the impurities from water. आप लोगों को पता है कि आपने एक बीकर लेना है और उस बीकर के अंदर यू हैव टू मिक्स सम सैंड एंड वाटर. हमने थोड़ा सा सैंड और हम लोगों ने थोड़ा सा वाटर यहाँ पर मिक्स कर देना है. अगर आप थोड़े थोड़े पार्टिकल्स देखोगे, ये देखो यहाँ पर सैंड पार्टिकल्स दिख रहे हैं आपको. इज दैट क्लियर? सो दीज राउंड राउंड के अंदर जो भी हैं ये सारे आपके पास सैंड पार्टिकल्स हैं. यू नो व्हाट आर वी पीपल गोइंग टू डू? वी आर गोइंग टू लीव दैट मिक्सचर फॉर सम टाइम. हम इसको रेस्ट करने देते हैं. And after some time, do you know what you see? You have a clear water up, and at the bottom we see that there is a layer of sand. The sand settles below and the clear water is above. So this is known as sedimentation. But let's see what is sedimentation once again. Sedimentation is a process in which the insoluble heavy particles in a liquid are allowed to settle down at the bottom of a container. Let's see to it. If we check it out, we had a mixture of water, of sand and water. So हम लोगों ने क्या किया? We just provided some time, and once we provided some time, what do we find? We find that we have the two layers now. One is a layer of a clean water, right? So let me explain it to you. This is a layer of a clean water, and the other layer is particularly the layer of a sand. Is that clear? So the sand particles get settled at the bottom of the beaker. So this is known as sedimentation. I repeat it once again. Sedimentation is a natural process in which the particles is carried to the bottom of the body of water and forms a solid layer. Is that clear? Where does the sand settle? At the bottom. And where is a clear water? Above. Is that clear? So this process is known as sedimentation. Now let's move to the second step, that is decanting. बच्चे decanting can be done only once आप लोगों के पास यहाँ पर sedimentation हो चुका है. अब आपके पास जो बीकर था जिसमें ऊपर क्लियर वाटर था, हमने अब इसको decant करना है. What is decant? ट्रांसफ़र करना है वाटर को from one beaker to the another beaker, right? So when the heavy insoluble substances such as sand sinks to the bottom of a solvent, then by pouring a solvent into the another storage area, the water will pour and the sand won't be able to catch up as it is too heavy. हम लोगों ने क्या कर देना है? इस वाटर को सिंपली ट्रांसफ़र कर देना है फ्रॉम वन बीकर टू अनदर बीकर. एंड डू रिमेंबर नॉट टू ट्रांसफ़र द होल ऑफ द वाटर, बिकॉज पहले वाले बीकर के वाटर के नीचे तो सैंड पार्टिकल्स थे. थोड़ा सा वाटर हम छोड़ देंगे जिससे कि ओनली क्लियर वाटर इज डीकैंटेड टू अ सेकेंड बीकर. Let's see to it once again. So the process of obtaining clear liquid by pouring a solution from a container in order to leave the sediments in the bottom of the original container is known as decantation. Decant का मतलब आपने वाटर को एक कैन से लेना है और दूसरे कैन में डाल देना है. जिस वाटर में इम्प्योरिटीज़ नीचे सेडिमेंट्स की तरह सेटल्ड हैं उस में से क्लियर वाटर दूसरे बीकर के अंदर ट्रांसफ़र करना है. सो रिमेंबर decantation कैन बी डन ओनली वंस sedimentation had already been done. Is that clear? Students, let's see the third method. The third method is a filtration. It is a process in which we use a filter paper to remove the insoluble impurities. We generally filter the groundwater because before drinking, because it may contain some impurities. You know what is the process of doing this? Here we use a filter paper and a funnel. I'm just going to show it. So this is a funnel which is fitted with a filter paper. And when we put the water into it, impurities remain in the filter paper and we have the filtrate here, that is the fresh water or the clean water. So this is a process of filtration where we can remove the impurities from the water. So dear students, you might be clear that sediment is a process in which we leave the water content for some time and the heavier impurities get settled down as the water can be purified easily. And after sedimentation, we do the decantation, when we pour the water slowly into another container so that the impurities get separated. And this process is called decantation. And one more step is there, and that is filtration. Filtration is a process in which we use the filter paper to remove the insoluble impurities. We generally filter the groundwater before drinking because it may contain some impurities. So dear students, you should remember that there are three methods through which the insoluble impurities can be removed from the water. And they are the sedimentation, you have the decantation, and finally you have the filtration. right? So these are the three methods that we use to remove the insoluble impurities from water. We had already discussed them in detail. Now, dear students, you should be knowing that there are some soluble impurities also. You know what is soluble? Soluble that can be mixed very properly. और वो हमारे को दिखाई भी नहीं देता. So impurities that can be dissolved in water are called the soluble impurities. And the examples are salt and any other chemical. They get mixed in the water very easily. So now, बच्चे, what could be done to remove them? So we have two methods to remove the soluble impurities. One is boiling and other is chlorination. So what is boiling? Boiling is a process in which we heat the water for around 20 minutes. Once we have heated a water for 20 minutes, we leave it aside for getting cold. And then we can use this water for drinking purpose. So ये एक simplest method है for the purification of water. बच्चे एक और मेथड होता है जिसको हम बोलते हैं क्लोरीनेशन. क्लोरीनेशन इज अ प्रोसेस इन विच वी एड क्लोरिन इन द वाटर टू किल द जर्म्स. क्लोरीनेशन के अंदर हम लोग क्लोरिन डालते हैं पानी के अंदर, जिससे कि हम लोग जो जर्म्स हैं, जो माइक्रोब्स हैं, जो हमें दिखाई भी नहीं देते, माइक्रोस्कोपिक वे से दिखाई देते हैं, तो उनको हम किल कर सकें. सो बच्चे, यू शुड ऑलवेज रिमेंबर, वाटर शुड बी स्टोर्ड एंड हैंडल्ड वेरी प्रॉपरली. और जिस वेसल में हम वाटर को स्टोर कर रहे हैं ना, इट शुड बी वॉश्ड रेगुलरली एंड इट शुड बी प्लेस्ड इन अ कवर्ड वेसल हुज वॉल्स शुड बी क्लीन, राइट. और अगर आप एक वाटर को किसी भी टैंक के अंदर कवर करके रखते हो तो इट शुड बी कवर्ड, द टैंक शुड बी कवर्ड एंड द टैंक शुड बी क्लीन्ड ऑल्सो, नॉट डेली बट आफ्टर सम फिक्स्ड पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. दिस इज अ प्रिकॉशन दैट वी हैव टू फॉलो. अगर आप प्रिकॉशंस को फॉलो नहीं करोगे तो बहुत सारी वाटरबोर्न डिजीजेस भी हो सकती हैं. इज दैट क्लियर? So dear students, see, this is a process of boiling where we put the water in a vessel and we boil it for around 20 minutes. And this is a process of chlorination. Chlorination के अंदर हम लोग क्या करते हैं? We boil the water for 5 minutes, right? And after boiling the water for 5 minutes, we add the bleach to the water. We stir it thoroughly and then let it stand for 30 minutes. And then you can use this water for drinking. This is a process of chlorination. So this ways we can overcome the soluble impurities from the water and purify the water. Dear students, the last water is the underground water. Water that falls from the rains, seeps into the ground and it travels through the different layers of soil like the topsoil, subsoil and the bedrock. And then finally it gets settled below the rocks. And we have the high amount of groundwater. So dear students, you should always remember that this water can even be drawn out by using wells and tube wells. हम लोग कई बार फील्ड्स में देखते हैं ना, ट्यूबवेल्स हैं और ट्यूबवेल्स कैन बी यूज एज अ सोर्स ऑफ वाटरिंग द प्लांट्स ऑल्सो. सो डियर स्टूडेंट्स, बट डू रिमेंबर वन थिंग कि जितनी भी ड्राई प्लेसेस होंगी ना, वहाँ पे जो ग्राउंड वाटर है उसका लेवल हमेशा कम होता है. एंड इवन इन डेजर्ट्स ऑल्सो the level of water is quite low. So dear students, though 70% of the surface is covered with water, but remember, only 1% is fresh water. So always save water. Always care for water because it is scarce.